Welcome everybody. I made this video because there's a topic that I've been thinking about for quite some time, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with my thoughts or opinions about this. But the other day I was listening to a video and everything seemed right, and everything with the current astrology right now just makes it seem like it's time for me to speak up. So if you guys know Darla, this is Darla. And this is Gemma. She normally doesn't hang out with us, but today she gets to be some extra love and support. If this is your first time meeting me, my name is Jacqui Mancuso. I'm a spiritual coach and astrologer from Northern Illinois. But I was listening recently to Pam Gregory's New Moon in Aquarius video for the February 9th new moon. And at the end of her video, she announced that she was going to speak on a topic that may not be accepted by some. And before she even started talking, I knew that she was going to bring up this topic of us versus you, my team versus your team. I'm right and you're wrong. So I would like to hop on and make a short video for you all, sharing my story with sides and parties, and how I landed where I am right now, which is arguably the most calm and peaceful that I've ever been. And this energy has been amplified lately in my work with clients. I can feel a lot of assumptions being placed upon me, assuming that I'm on their team. And it doesn't offend me, so I just go with it because frankly, I believe that both sides have amazing ideas and terrible ways of putting them into practice. And frankly, both parties right now have gone so extreme that I would hate to be labeled as either one. And the more I've detached from agreeing with one side or the other, I've been able to see that the picture that one side paints of the other is extremely exaggerated. So here's some of my backstory. I grew up in a mildly liberal household, and the only memory that really makes me say that is linked to how my family viewed money. The energy growing up was how the government screwed us little people and how they should be the ones to provide for us. And when I think back to the energy of my family growing up, it was very victim-y. It was assumed that conservative Republican values were only for people who were born into money, and those with money were usually bad and selfish people. During the 2016 election, I was fresh out of college with 25 grand in loans I had no business accumulating at that point in my life, and this was the first time that I ever became excited about politics. With the exception of when my public high school told us in 2008 that Barack Obama was the only choice. And I was told only good things about Obama, and I was told only bad things about McCain. There was no freedom of choice. I was told who was good. I digress. So in 2016, I became a hardcore Bernie babe because this sweet little old man was telling me that what I've been wanting to hear my whole life, he was validating. The rich people should be paying for you because you deserve a good life, because you should be able to follow the system. It's their fault that your life is hard. And then when he lost to Hillary, I lost interest. At that time in my life, I had already been without cable for 4 years. So I never watched the news. But the accepted narrative of my family and the coworkers when I was working part-time at the Apple store and while I was student teaching in a public school, the generally accepted view was that Trump was a bad guy because he made an inappropriate comment about a woman. And at the time, I had unhealed memories of abuse. So I was on board that he was a complete piece of shit, and he talked over people at debates, which was rude. And he was elected, and I thought that my life was over. I imagined myself being forced into the kitchen, books being taken away from me, being told by the world that I was so dumb because we had a misogynist running our country. Then I stopped caring about politics, and I started living my life. because I had just met the man who is now my husband, and I was in my la honeymoon phase. But this guy had grown up much differently than I had. His family didn't have any particular political ties, they could care less, but he didn't feel as pressured to move out of his family home as early as I did. And he was still living with his parents when we met, but he was doing the most responsible thing possible and putting aside as much money as he could. He never financed anything in his life. He only bought things that he could afford up front. And this astonished me because I was raised with the attitude of, well, I deserve this, so I'm going to pay it off as I go. And that landed me with this mound of student debt at ridiculous interest rates. This man, who's now my husband, was dead set on never ever renting an apartment, and that was a waste of money. And my head literally exploded when we had this conversation because I was conditioned to believe that I would never be able to afford a house on my part-time retail salary. Well, with patience, the stars aligned, and we bought our first house in May of 18. And I was surprised at the ease of the process, and I realized how possible it was for normal people to own homes back then. And we found an even better house 1 year after that. So we sold our first home, bought our current home in 2019, and we even refinanced in 2020 and have an interest rate that's unheard of these days. So we all know what else happened in 2020. And at the time, I was teaching in a public school when the rumors started going around the school that we might have to go home for some time. We might have to close down. This was Friday the 13th of March, 2020. I remember giving all of my classes a talk about how every election year for the last however many years, a scary illness comes around and nothing happens, and how news stories try to scare you. But if these students of mine were to go home and ask their parents about the actual realities every 4 years, everything always turns out fine. Then they shut down our school, but it was a week before spring break, so I was grateful to have an extra week off. But then we kept getting word that we weren't going back, and I felt so bad for my students because they were missing out on the most social part of their day. Now, my also very opinionated husband immediately called BS. If the government cares so much about our health, why are we being sent home from work and still expected to pay our bills? If they knew so much about this virus right away, how to avoid spreading it, how come they didn't have the cure already? And this caused some arguments and tension in the house because I didn't have a strong opinion yet. I assumed it was one of those election year things, but I wanted to make sure. And as time went on, the rules placed upon me became more strict, and I didn't see anyone around me getting sick, and things didn't add up. And one thing about Jacqui is that when you put a boundary on me that doesn't make sense, I get agitated. So when I was mandated to make sure that my physical education students who were healthy and spry, when I was ensured that they had to cover their face with a cloth mask that has holes bigger than a virus that have been proven to cause bacterial pneumonia, when it became my job description to walk students to the bathroom to ensure that no one else was in the bathroom, even though they had their mask on, which is supposed to keep them safe for 6 feet, to be demoted from a physical education teacher to a bathroom attendant because of an illness that replaced the flu. The news showed the data for all those deaths that year, but did you ever look at how many people died from the flu in those years? Because the flu magically didn't exist. But all of these roadblocks were in my way, and I was getting very angry with society, and I don't like being told what to do. And in turn, I don't tell people what to do. But I made the best out of it, and I spent a lot of time walking with friends, and I heard a lot about alternative news outlets on those walks. So I just started listening, just to hear what these alternative news outlets had to say, and things started making a lot more sense for me. And I learned a lot about a side of that president at the time that the mainstream media outlets would never dare talk about. I learned that all the major news outlets were owned by the same parent companies. So that means, yes, Fox and CNN are part of the same team. And I watched a couple of really eye-opening documentaries that weren't necessarily easy to watch, but it was time that I knew the truth about how our world operates. And with the extreme amount of top-down control around us, it just made way too much sense. I'm referring to a few documentaries that I'll let you know of. If you haven't seen Fall of the Cabal or Out of Shadows, those are two really good places to start. Thrive and Thrive 2 as well. They're great. And my eyes were opened to how much we've all just been lied to our entire lives, and how easy it is to select a trajectory for society and to paint the picture through television propaganda, disguised as news, to use our emotions to sway the country in a particular direction. And around this time, I remember listening to a man named Charlie Ward. He has a podcast on BitChute, which is the uncensored YouTube. And at the time, I just thought he was an alternative news guy, talking about how Trump and the White Hats are actually making peace with the world leaders, about how there were no wars between 2016 and 2020, and how gas was an affordable price because we weren't pretending to fight over oil to raise prices against our will. And then this podcast guy, this seemingly political podcaster, started talking about how God wasn't up there, how God is in here, and how our own moral compass is the only tool that we can rely on right now. And at that time, I assumed that everyone who has awakened was on this side of the coin. This was right around the time that I started going to Reiki shares. I started learning Reiki. I started mixing more with the spiritual community. Because for me, it made so much sense. If what I want is to be free, then it's up to me to allow others to be free, not to mandate what they wear and what they put in their bodies. And I was shocked at how many of these spiritual gatherings were based on fear. I thought this world of people believed that we could heal ourselves, that everything happens for a reason, that we're always in the right place at the right time. But only if you meet my qualifications, apparently. No, thank you. And as I walked down the path of finding personal freedom, I began considering leaving my job with the public school and creating my own wealth, because I was seeing more and more how accessible it was, and how it was really my victim mentality that held me back. And when I looked through a different news lens other than the mainstream, the accepted story, I realized how big the community really is on the other side, and how many other people were gathering as conservatives, wanting peace and freedom and personal accountability. And my eyes were open to exactly what I was told that this side was not. And many events occurred as I was gawking at the world news. The trucker convoy in Canada, videos of celebrating peace in Canada that was dismantled by the Prime Minister, and people who participated in a peace gathering lost access to their bank accounts. And then hearing both sides of what happened on January 6th, very opposite stories from the two different sides, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And after watching 10,000 Mules, I saw how large this community was, and how hearing that our current president received the most votes in history, but I was seeing with my own eyes Trump rallies packed to the brim and Trump flags all around, and I think I've maybe ever seen 4 Biden flags or stickers in my life ever. And there was a lot of excitement in this alternative community around January 2021 that the voter fraud was going to be exposed and that Trump was going to gallop in on his white horse and that everything was going to get better because our savior's back. And dates were constantly being thrown around in the community for a scare event. The message would be, don't worry, you're okay. This is going to be a big false flag. It's all fake, but it's happening. Get excited. It's happening. And these messages kept coming and coming. And slowly I began to lose interest in how my emotions were once again being swung left, swung right, up and down, excitement, letdown, hopefulness, disappointment. And in January of 2023, I deleted Telegram, where I was following this alternative media. I stopped listening to alternative podcasts, and I stopped paying attention to global events altogether. And I chose to focus my attention and my energy on my world, my family, myself, my work, my home, the things that I had direct control over. And the emotional waves and crashes began to calm down. And for a minute, I missed the hopeful intel that something was about to happen, but it was like missing the high that you need more drugs to get back to. And the more I distanced myself from the story as a whole, the more I realized that it has little to no impact on my life. I have no clue what's going on in the world, and I don't know why I have to. My power lies here, in myself, in getting to know how I can be my best so I can serve my best. I don't know where a donation would go. There's so many charities that have been exposed of being used to launder money. It's been exposed over and over. The more I focus on myself and my family, the more power I realize I have to make my life amazing, which gives me hope that every single human on this planet has that same amount of power. So it's not my job to make your life better, but I've made it my job to share with you how I've improved my life to help you improve your own. And if I go back to that fresh out of high school Jacqui and give her this mentality that I have the power to create the life that I desire and that I can make rebellious choices and go against the grain and that I don't have to follow the system that's been laid out for me, maybe I wouldn't have chosen to borrow an insane amount of money as a teenager to receive an education, to do a job that I could have found an alternative way to do. But at that time in my life, I was preoccupied with movies and media and celebrities and social media that I couldn't find time to put myself first. I love that I've been on both sides. I've been fully on both sides. And both sides really want the same thing. We all want to live a good life. We all want to have access to good food. We all want to get along with everyone. We all want to live free of judgment. And there's a really strong narrative on both sides that it's the other side that's holding you back, which is honestly bullshit. I believe it's the presentation of the other side that's holding your side back. The extremism shown in the media is just not true. It's not true. I am an astrologer. Here's where that comes in. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012. He is in his own sign of illusion. So please consider that much of the information being fed to you by people who are being paid to feed you information is biased. Please consider the fact that anything can be filmed and made to look real, and that crisis actors are paid actors. Please use your discernment as Neptune finishes his time in Pisces over the next couple years. This year and next is only going to become more and more deceptive. And if you are basing your reality on what's on TV, I believe you're doing yourself a disservice. Especially now with Pluto in Aquarius, AI can create so much. and CGI looks more realistic than ever. Have you ever heard of deepfake technology? And if you're not aware, guys, holograms are literally real nowadays. And please consider the people who are telling you that you're screwed and the only solution is buying what they're selling you is biased. With that being said, I have a course for sale. I'm just kidding. But please ask yourself if you are making your choices out of fear or out of love. Please let your inner compass guide you. The North Node is in Aries until July 2024. And it's time to know who you are and what you want. And it's okay to go against the mainstream, no matter what side you're on. It's okay to disagree with the extremist sides of the coin. But if we all keep creating this duality of my side is all right and your side is all wrong, we are never going to live in a world of peace. We're all wrong and we're all right. I had a very open-minded discussion with a cousin last week who's also pretty middle of the road. And what we discovered is that both sides are accusing the other side of performing hateful acts to children. If you know what I'm talking about, disgusting acts, the sound of freedom type things. And if that's what it takes for us to band together, so be it. We need a common enemy. It's not one side causing harm to the other. It's the people at the top shaking hands and pretending that they hate each other to watch us create our own havoc. That's all. I am here to provoke and to get you to question yourself. I have love for every single person on this earth, for every single part of their path. Please don't let anyone tell you how you should live your life. And please, I suggest that you refrain from telling others how they should live their lives. We've all been gifted free will, and we all have our own unique ways of bringing love to the world. So in case you were wondering, no, I don't support the Liberal Party. And no, I don't support the Conservative Party. I support making daily conscious choices to love and respect each other and ourselves. So thank you for your open mind and your open heart. This was something that I knew needed to come out, but it was not an easy thing to sit down and make this video. I love you all. Sending love to all. Namaste. Hope to see you back here soon. I hope that video was just as insightful for you as it was for all of us. Darla and I really appreciate you being here with me. Thank you for liking this video, sharing it with a friend who you think would benefit, and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Also, drop a comment and let us know what you got from this video. What was your biggest insight or takeaway? If you want to see what else I'm working on, click on my link tree. It's right underneath this YouTube video. We'll see you next time. Take care.